Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, I want to give my thoughts on the rumors about a potentially massive shift in Microsoft's approach to Xbox exclusives, and how the writing behind this decision may have already been on the wall for quite some time. Before we get into the meat of this video, I need to start with an important disclaimer. At the time of writing, Xbox has yet to officially confirm or deny the details of what's been reported by several sources across the gaming space. It's important to remember that, until anything is officially confirmed by Microsoft, these are still just rumors, and should not be treated as fact until validated or shot down by Team Green. Okay, with that out of the way, let's break down what's gotten everyone so worked up about the future of exclusivity in the Xbox ecosystem. On February 4th, gaming outlet Xbox Era broke the news that, according to their sources, Xbox has plans to release Starfield on a PlayStation 5 after the release of its Shattered Suns expansion later this year. Rumors had already been swirling about the possibility of other Xbox exclusives, like Hi-Fi Rush and Sea of Thieves, making their way to Sony and Nintendo's hardware. Reports that, at least in the case of Tango Gameworks' breakout hit from last year, were seemingly corroborated by in-game leaks of new items exclusive to each of those platforms. Those rumblings already had plenty of fans concerned, but when the news that Starfield, arguably Xbox's biggest first-party exclusive release this console generation, would be making its way to Sony's hardware, all hell promptly broke loose. Every fan, commentator, and developer under the sun had their own take on the situation. And even more fuel was thrown on the fire after The Verge's Tom Warren revealed that the recently announced Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, a game whose status as an Xbox exclusive had been up in the air until January's Developer Direct Showcase, was also being eyed by Microsoft as a candidate for porting over to the PlayStation 5. As I'm sure you can imagine, the discourse surrounding all of this shocking news was, of course, completely rational and respectful, with no unsavory behavior from either side of the console aisle. And yes, that was sarcasm in case anyone somehow missed it. These two stories pretty much set gaming social media on fire. Many Xbox fans, already distressed over the idea of games like Hi-Fi Rush losing their exclusivity, seemed to be in shambles, while plenty of their PlayStation counterparts wasted no time gloating over the supposed downfall of Microsoft's newest console. And all the while, Nintendo fans kicked their feet up and munched on their popcorn, enjoying the show as per usual. Console war jokes aside, this news really was a shock. Hi-Fi Rush heading to Switch and PS5, while somewhat confusing and perhaps a bit hard to stomach, made way more sense than a game like Starfield doing the same. An exclusive from Bethesda, who Microsoft had acquired for the exact purpose of pumping out high-profile, first-party IP to serve as Xbox console sellers. There are tons of different angles from which to approach the situation, but most opinions fall into one of two main camps. First, there's the idea that this change in exclusivity will be the death of Xbox hardware. In many people's minds, if Microsoft plans to eventually release its exclusives onto other consoles, what's the point of owning an Xbox at all? If I can buy a PlayStation 5 and enjoy Sony's top-tier first-party lineup, then wait to play Xbox titles until after their initial release, why wouldn't I? And while I can see some merit to that argument, the obvious counterpoint is quite simple. Game Pass still exists, which many people seem to be overlooking in all of this. Yes, you might be able to purchase Xbox games on your PS5 once their exclusivity window has ended, but you'd best believe you'll still be paying full price for them. If you already own an Xbox Series console, or are looking to invest in some new hardware, the proposition of having a Game Pass machine is still very, very appealing. Even if you subscribe to the Ultimate tier for $17 a month, that caps out at $204 a year. Less than 3 full price releases will cost you, on either piece of hardware. Beyond the absolutely massive catalog of titles Game Pass provides, you'll still be getting day one access to every first-party Xbox exclusive. An incredibly cost-efficient proposition, no matter how you slice it. Microsoft has made it abundantly clear that Game Pass is a huge focal point of their gaming strategy, and has been for quite some time, and it remains an incredibly valuable deal for those who partake in it, myself included, as an Ultimate subscriber for several years running. Opposite of all that doom and gloom is the more business-minded take, that Xbox is continuing to expand their reach to as many devices as possible, which, for anyone who's been paying attention, should come as no surprise, being the company's stated strategy and all. Microsoft and Xbox leadership have reiterated their desire to spread this ecosystem to as many devices and as many users as possible time and time again, be that through consoles, PCs, mobile devices, and cloud gaming. While the cloud avenue has yet to materialize, in large part due to both a lack of demand, but more importantly a lack of reliable, widespread internet infrastructure to support it, the other 3 areas continue to boom. Many touted the Activision Blizzard acquisition for bringing massive IPs like Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, and Diablo into the Xbox family. And make no mistake, those are all incredibly valuable additions, as evidenced by a staggering jump in gaming revenue last quarter thanks to those products. But another huge, and often overlooked reason Microsoft wanted to acquire Activision Blizz was for their massive mobile user base built up by King, thanks to games like Candy Crush and the like. While Xbox hasn't outwardly dismissed their declining focus on console competition, at least for now, it's been abundantly clear that their strategy in going toe-to-toe with Sony and Nintendo has gradually shied away from trying to out-console them, and instead provide value to consumers through Game Pass and other adjacent products like xCloud. And despite all the wailing over an Xbox console apocalypse, as I mentioned earlier, the avenue of having a console that serves as a gateway to that Game Pass ecosystem is still incredibly appealing. Plenty of consumers either can't afford a high-end gaming PC or simply aren't interested in that market, and would rather kick back on the couch, fire up a console, and easily jump into their favorite games. And as far as exclusivity goes, whether Xbox plans to keep some exclusives for their fans or roll them all out to other consoles via delayed release, which, I'd like to remind everyone, we still don't actually know the answer to, Xbox players will still have day one access to exclusives that many others simply will not. In the same way Sony has begrudgingly begun rolling out their own first-party IPs to PC after launching on PS5 first, Microsoft can follow a similar model when it comes to dropping their games on Xbox and PC, then following up on PlayStation and Switch later, if they so desire. This would allow their fans to retain priority access to these new products, while also expanding their outreach to other platforms and paying players eventually, something I'm sure Microsoft leadership sees as a win-win, and that's exactly why this appears to be their strategy moving forward. Regardless of where you stand on that spectrum, taking a look at the bigger picture, Microsoft's gaming successes in the current era, their new strategy for competing with Sony and Nintendo, and continued struggles in the console market overall, the fact that we've reached this outcome suddenly seems more like an inevitable eventuality than an unexpected surprise. It's no secret that Xbox lost the last generation's console war, and lost it badly. While they stopped reporting Xbox sales figures all the way back in 2016, which is never a good sign for any product, it was eventually confirmed that the PS4 outsold its Xbox counterpart by a 2-to-1 margin. Thanks to Microsoft's many missteps at the start of that console era, Sony took a massive lead and never looked back. And while the delta in sales of this console generation may not be as stark, it's quite clear Xbox is still lagging behind in third place. Despite offering the world's most powerful console, the Xbox Series X and S simply haven't offered the same appeal as their PS5 and Switch counterparts, in large part due to a lack of blockbuster first-party exclusives. While Microsoft has tried to remedy that issue, mainly by scooping up the likes of Bethesda and Activision Blizzard, as we enter the second half of this generation, it would be hard to argue Xbox hasn't lost this fight for the second time in a row, something they themselves are acutely aware of. And what could be the main reason why, after all these years of trying to claw their way back into the competition, they seem to be waving the white flag? After trying and failing to keep up with Sony and Nintendo for not one, but 2 hardware cycles, is it really so difficult to believe Xbox came to the realization that their time, efforts, and resources might be better suited by investing into different means of competition? Why bother trying to out-console the number 1 and number 2 systems for another 4 or 5 years when, in all likelihood, that battle has already been lost? Instead, why not focus on providing value and attracting customers through other means, like a subscription service that offers terrific value and those blockbuster exclusives your fans have been waiting all this time for? 2024 has the potential to be Xbox's best year yet in terms of first-party exclusives, but this raises a new problem. If your console ownership is lagging behind the competition so badly, even in light of Game Pass, you're missing out on a massive portion of potential consumers on those other platforms. So, why not get the best of both worlds? Release the high-profile exclusives your fans have been waiting for on Xbox, and then once they've enjoyed their time in the spotlight, kick them over to Sony and Nintendo and double-dip a little bit. Look, I'm not going to sit here and tell Xbox fans that are upset with this that they're in the wrong, because I think they have every right to feel slighted by Microsoft. Regardless of the business logic behind the decision, it doesn't make it any less painful to realize that your purchase of an Xbox, made by many with the intention of eventually partaking in the console exclusives that have been promised for so long, is now somewhat invalidated by the shift in strategy. For Xbox fans out there feeling upset, I hear you, and your feelings are certainly valid. This pivot in policy when it comes to exclusives does raise concerns about the longevity and importance of Xbox consoles, particularly for those who use that hardware as their primary gaming machine. That being said, while the news that Starfield and Indiana Jones might be looking to go multi-platform left me flabbergasted at first, if you take a step back and really look at the big picture, it becomes clearer and clearer that this very well could be Microsoft's best bet for ensuring the Xbox ecosystem they've worked so hard to create is kept profitable and sustainable in the long term. Regardless of the eventual outcome, and remember, we don't even know for sure whether or not any of these leaks are true, and if so, to what extent. The biggest problem isn't whether these rumors actually are true, it's the fact that Microsoft and Xbox have yet to get ahead of the discourse and say something, anything to reassure their fans. All of this info going public is far from ideal for them, but zipping their lips and refusing to acknowledge it is only fueling the fire, uglying the discourse even further, and leaving fans feeling like they're well and truly in the dark about the future of their consoles. And that's just not acceptable. Plain and simple. Microsoft really does need to address these rumors soon. If they are true, to any extent, which at this point seems like almost a certainty, it will be painful to rip that band-aid off, but the temporary discomfort will be much better than letting this open wound fester, which would really harm the long-term prospects of that ecosystem you've been working so hard to build up over all these years. As I always say during these types of videos, I have no horse in this race. I own each of the 3 major consoles and a PC, and spread my gaming out across all of them. What I care about isn't some console war victory or rubbing someone's nose in a shitty situation. What I do care about, and what we should all care about at the end of the day, is the health of our industry, and the well-being of our hobby. And if Microsoft has determined this shift in their approach to exclusivity is what's best in the long term, I'm fully behind them making these moves. However, there are plenty of valid concerns being shared. From the future of Microsoft's hardware, to Xbox owners becoming second-class citizens in their own ecosystem, to Sony and Nintendo being able to raise game prices even further thanks to less competition. But we won't know anything until we hear from the leadership over at Team Green, which, as of this video going live, still hasn't happened yet. For me, I'm honestly a bit torn over this whole thing. On one hand, some, or all Xbox games coming to other platforms after a time window of exclusivity means more people get the chance to experience titles like Hi-Fi Rush, Indiana Jones, and Starfield, which is a win for everyone in my book. On the other, could we really end up in a universe where Xbox hardware simply ceases to exist? Microsoft continues to shift their resources into other gaming areas, but to abandon the idea of Xbox consoles entirely seems unfathomable. Thanks to leaks from the FTC's court case against the Activision Blizzard acquisition, we already know there are designs out there for an all-digital Xbox Series X refresh. Where do those plans stand now? Will we see the release of that console, or any others, ever? Or will the Xbox Series consoles end up claiming the dubious title of Microsoft's last generation of gaming hardware? There are a ton of questions that need to be answered on this, and every second that goes by without an official statement from Microsoft and Xbox only serves to make things worse. I just hope we hear something soon, and I'm very curious to see where all of this ends up landing. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe for more gaming content, and let me know your thoughts on the Xbox exclusivity conundrum in the comments below. You're a real one and I appreciate you. Catch you later, homies.